Without question, the number one mistake I've made when growing Market Monster is trying to go after brands who are in the 10 to 100 million revenue range. I'm going to explain in this video the 6 reasons why, if I could go back in time, I would completely change our trajectory, as well as what we're doing to fix things to get back to 50% growth this year. Bearing in mind that we grew by over triple figures for 3 consecutive years. And when I started to court and go after these mid-market enterprise level accounts, it slowed us down to 2.5% and led to a massive amount of problems within the company. So stick around as we get into the 6 reasons and what we're doing critically right now to fix it and change the direction of our company back towards profitability. Now, before we dive into the 6 reasons why I believe there was a massive mistake, it's important to set the stage and provide some context as to how we got here today. So from 2019 to 2020, Market Monster realized that the market was consolidating around Klaviyo and Shopify, and we really rode the coattails of both these software success and jumped on the bandwagon of consolidation in the ecosystem. That was an amazing decision for us, and it enabled us to grow from 2019 to 2020 by over 850% as we achieved product market fit. That was great for me because I was personally very poor at the time, living in London and just coming off the back of a failed e-commerce business, so that was much needed. The following year, we grew by over 117%, and then the year after that by 92.5%, so just under 100%. We then slowed down significantly last year to just 2.46% growth. And I believe the main reason why was because we positioned ourselves to target mid-level and enterprise accounts. And as a result of that decision, not only did it cause a huge downfall in our growth, but also numerous problems within the business in terms of service delivery due to the complexity of those accounts. So let me go into these 6 reasons as to why I believe that was a mistake, as well as what we're doing to course correct things today. First reason is the total addressable market is just not that big for brands doing between 10 to 100 million in revenue who are using both Shopify Plus and Klaviyo. And if you look at Shopify Plus's own numbers, I think they confirmed that there's something like 16 to 20,000, maybe more by the time this video comes out. But that's still not a huge pool to get clients from when you're considering the amount of brands in between the 1 to 10 million in annual revenue range, where Shopify really excels as a platform and they have the most market penetration. And that's generally how we built our business. And when we moved up market to service these brands and position ourselves this way, that's when we stopped growing as quickly. So definitely by going up market, we caused massive slowdown in our growth, and it also led to numerous other issues in the business. The second reason is the complexity to service these accounts is completely different from the 1 to 10 million revenue range. And that causes issues with eroding your profitability, the amount of touch points you need to have with the consumer, and where most agencies excel is creating, especially in the email game, productized service offering and very templated service delivery to clients in that 1 to 10 million range. You cannot get away with doing that in the 10 to 100 million revenue range. That doesn't mean everyone should get shitty templated flows in the 1 to 10 million revenue range, but the sophistication in terms of dealing with these clients and the amount of touch points and how many other role players are involved will erode the profitability, and there's just not the right revenue range for agencies ultimately to take these brands on and be profitable. I can tell you from my experience that most brands, irrespective if they're doing 80 to 100 million or 1 million in revenue, expect to pay an email agency anywhere between 3K on the lower end up to 10 to 12K at the real higher end. I don't know many other agencies charging above that. Even our best deals over all time have fell around the 15K in monthly revenue. So when you take these things into account, there is just not a lot of upside into taking the bigger brands on, even though the systems to some extent are repeatable from 1 to 10 million to 10 to 100 million. The level of complexity in servicing the mid-market to enterprise accounts is just way higher, and that will erode the profitability and your ability to grow as an agency. It definitely did with us. The third reason is an unfortunate one, and that's politics. Now, when you're taking on brands who are doing between 10 to 100 million, you're going to have a lot of role players who are just not involved from the 1 to 10 million revenue range, where generally speaking, you're dealing with the CEO directly and probably have a good relationship on a one-to-one basis. They'll be wearing many hats at that range, and they'll be able to approve things. Yes, sometimes they might have high expectations, but in my experience, the work is a lot faster in the 1 to 10 million revenue range compared to the 10 to 100 million revenue range. And as you start to get higher towards 9 figures, you're going to deal with a lot of politics. It's just inevitable. You're going to have the brand director on the call criticizing email designs, talking about copy, tone of voice, etc. You're going to have fractional CMOs dipping their toes in, head of retention. You've got multiple role players, and ultimately you have to have many more touch points with these people, satisfy them, and play psychological games as well to maintain the health of the client account. You don't have these issues when you're dealing with a brand in the 1 to 10 million revenue range. And for that reason, it brings us on to number 4. Number 4 is the most difficult one in dealing with brands in the 10 to 100 million revenue range, or mid-market to enterprise level. And that is the staff to service these accounts. Everybody knows if you're working in an agency, sometimes the upside to staff growth and earnings is not the best. But when you're dealing with brands that are really sophisticated, they expect the best quality people to service those accounts. And the best quality people generally tend to be working in-house at brands in senior positions, or they've started their own agencies, or they're really expensive fractional or freelance people. So when you take these things into account, it's just extremely difficult to service these brands to a high level with the talent in the marketplace. And for that reason, again, a lot of the staff in agencies tend to work better in the 1 to 10 million revenue range in the email game, because they're able to follow more formulaic strategy and repeatable processes that don't require them to play politics or think outside the box to a level that sophisticated brands will expect of them, which ultimately is just going to cause to misalignment in expectations and change. Number 5 is that at some stage, it's just logical for many of these brands to take things in-house. And this is not always a terrible thing for agencies, because brands in the 10 to 100 million revenue range tend to have more complex requirements when it comes to inventory, revenue targets, promotions, different moving pieces going on, and that can put a lot of downward pressure on agencies and really stress them out, especially when you're dealing with campaign changes at the last minute all the time. And ultimately, a lot of brands in the 1 to 10 million revenue range will enable you to plan more in advance, something like 4 to 6 weeks out. You can get that strategy approved, and 80% of it will generally run smoothly unless you're dealing with a difficult client. When you're dealing with mid-market to enterprise clients, that just doesn't happen, let me tell you. There is multiple role players and politics involved, and they will be getting involved in your strategy, in your business, and requesting last minute changes quite frequently. Again, that's going to erode your profitability, and at some stage it's logical for the brand to go, you know what, we can do things in-house more efficiently and we'll get better results from it. So this is another consideration to take into account, is that sometimes it's great to sign these brands. Often it turns out to be a mid to long-term project sometimes, but the brand generally has the intention at that revenue level to take things in-house at some point, unless they're using you, like I said, on a project basis as a glorified sparring partner to extract the knowledge from your agency and then, like I said, take things in-house and run with it. And you can't really blame them for that. It's just a logical course of business. Number 6 is a bit of a scary one, and it's not something that a lot of people consider. What's the legal implications of things going wrong when you're dealing with bigger brands? I can tell you some of the contracts that we've had drawn up. We've had to pay for lawyers to analyze these things as well to safeguard ourselves. And a lot of these brands will push a smaller agency around to really put a lot of pressure on you when it comes to the contractual agreement between you. And you don't have a leg to stand on, because they can really push you around, and they've got a lot more financial leverage to cause you problems should the project go wrong, that smaller brands are just generally not going to bother with. So you do have to be really prudent, especially when it comes to data and sharing things. You should always be anyway, and confidentiality should be your highest priority. But when you're dealing with big brands who cannot fuck things up because the consequences can be grave and they can put you out of business and put you in big trouble. So definitely something to consider, and it's a complexity and a layer of tension that a lot of small agencies just do not want to deal with, which I completely understand. Okay, now those 6 reasons are out of the way, what are we doing to course correct and change direction? Well, it should be obvious at this point. We're going back to focusing on servicing the market segment in the 1 to 10 million revenue range. Of course, we still have mid-market to enterprise brands, and it's amazing and it's a privilege to serve these companies. I'm actually very proud of the fact that for some reason they like us a lot and they don't tend to churn like you would expect given all the reasons I've just told you. However, it is a significant bottleneck to growth in terms of servicing these brands because there's just not a huge amount out there, and it's very difficult to build a team that's able to service these accounts. So one of the things that Marketing Monster is focusing on heavily this year to get back to over 50% growth is starting to service brands in the smaller market segments, and I believe that will put us back on a positive growth trajectory. Okay, so that's the first video out the way for the new channel. Hope you liked it. Please hit that thumbs up, subscribe if you're new. I'm trying to release 2 every single week as I dissect the lessons I've learned over 5 years of growing agencies. First one, Marketing Monster to 7 figures. Hoping to do the same in just a year with Content Army. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all again soon.